Duncan and I were introduced through a mutual friend. He played water polo with a good friend of mine, and we met during Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, one thing led to the next. I carried on pursuing Leanne until she had to eventually give in, and just thought, let's try this out.
So we've been married for 4 years. This year will be 5. When we got married, I think there was a lot that we still didn't know about each other. I'd say the beginning of our relationship was quite tumultuous, and the relationship kind of came to a head when we had our first child. We both loved him dearly, but because we weren't in a good place, it was a lot of strain. It was volatile. There was a lot of arguing. You know, this is like getting real. You've got a child now. And so there was just things that happened and came out, and, you know, we didn't even have the tools to deal with those things.
Leanne had a far stronger faith than what I did. I knew God, I believed in God. I thought I had a faith, but I was in control of my own life. But it was very difficult, I think, for Leanne, even more so, because she couldn't understand where this was coming from. And it was almost like this wish of going, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, God, please, I need you to come into Duncan's life. And the more she was pushing into that, it just was almost like I was fighting back at it. My heart was in the wrong place. So I was trying to control the situation, get the answers from a human element, almost from the flesh, and to be able to go and say, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. What I did and how I behaved, I have every right to, which then just escalated, in terms of the conflict.
So last year, came a point for me where I couldn't live the way that we were living. So I asked to separate, and there was even greater challenges with that because we had our child to consider.
So the realization of how bad things really were, it was scary.
There was a lot of disbelief on his part, of the things that I couldn't continue to live with. So, yeah, God kind of began to work in that place and speak to him. We would come to church, and I would sit on one side, and Duncan would sit on the other side, and, we would leave and not see each other. But in those moments, I was desperately hanging on to hope that something would happen.
Me wanting to be in control, I realized that I wasn't any longer in control. And I had nothing else but to seek God's word. It was a choice that I had to make to improve my relationship and have a relationship with God no matter what happened between myself and Leanne, because I needed to change. But to be able to go and say, hey, God, this is for you, and I surrender, and I'm doing it for you, and how you want it to be is I'll respect that.
There've been a lot of times before the separation where there've been a lot of promises, and this is going to change, and that's going to change. And so, words didn't matter at that point. I needed to see that the change is happening in the heart. When he would come over and he'd see Daniel and things like that, then I could just see a peace about him. He wasn't striving, and just a tenderness with me that hadn't kind of existed for a long time.
I think what actually ended up happening is like how we met and we started having fun, and like Leanne said, we just sat and spoke and did fun things. We started afresh without even knowing. I guess the thing I want to say is that there's no ways I would have got through this if it wasn't for God. And I didn't know God before then. And that is the only reason and the only way. There is no other way.
I think for people going through something similar or are going through what we're going through, you can set yourself things that you're going to do to try and mend a relationship. But in the end, everything has to happen in your heart. We have consciously made the decision that our marriage is number one. And so we will fight, but at the end come together and go, you know what? God is at the top. And without him, this relationship isn't going to work. We could have decided it's not going to happen and we could have walked away. But the tenderness and the change and the softening of the hearts, only God can do that.
You don't need to have this serious prayer. Just in your own time, just driving, say, God, please, you are in control. I surrender this whole situation, my marriage, my life, my everything. I surrender to you, and I'm just praying that you take full control. And as soon as you release that, you will receive so much hope. There's just that
infilling
sense of just peace. And until you go and say, God, I can't anymore. I hand this over to you, and I just lay at your feet and surrender to your way. It is tough, but having God at the center of your life and just surrendering, you will get through it.